This video covers everything we did in class today on Tuesday, March 1st. To follow along with this video, you'll need to click the ClassKick link right above this video so that you can complete the assignment as I walk you through it. The announcements from class today are here on the first slide. You can pause or read those in your own ClassKick. On slide 2, you'll see today's Do Now. I want you to meet me on slide 2, pause this video, and complete the Do Now. Again, meet me on slide 2, pause this video, and complete the Do Now. You can see that in today's Do Now, we're working on moving from expanded form to factored form. So when we see that we have 18 plus 12, we can identify 6 as a common factor, or a number that I can multiply by to get 18, and a number that I can multiply by to get 12. I can do the same thing with 10 and 20. I know that 10 is a number that I can multiply to get 10, and a number that I can multiply to get 20. I can multiply 10 times 1 to get 10, and 10 times 2 to get 20. So I can see that if I were to distribute this equation that I currently have in factored form, 10 times 1 would get me 10, and 10 times 2 would get me to 20. And so I know that I have correctly written my equation in factored form. With 5 and 50, I could do something similar. If I put 5 on the outside of my parentheses, I know 5 times 1 is 5, and 5 times 10 is 50. Finally, when I have variables, I'm doing the exact same thing. But since my variables are different, I know that they're staying on the inside of my parentheses. 9 times x is 9x, and 9 times y is 9y. In question 5, I can multiply by 3, but I'll have to include a 2 in front of my y, because when I distribute that 3, for example, multiply the 3 times 2y, I want to make sure that I end up with 6y. You have a quiz coming up on moving from distributed to factored form on Friday. On today's agenda, we were focused on lesson 6. If you are absent from class, I'm going to have you skip activity 1 and activity 2 and just focus on activity 3. You don't even need to worry about the exit ticket. So we'll meet on slide 5, and that'll be the slide that you're going to focus on if you were absent from class today. 6.3, even more situations, diagrams, and equations. Story 1. Lynn had 90 flyers to hang up around the school. She gave 12 flyers, each to 3 volunteers. Then she took the remaining flyers and she divided them up equally between the volunteers. Story 2. Lynn had 90 flyers to hang up around the school. After giving the same number of flyers to each of the 3 volunteers, she had 12 left to hang up by herself. I want you to start and pause this video and underline the key information in the story. Again, pause this video and underline the key information in the story. In story 1, we know that Lynn is starting with 90 flyers to hang up. There's 3 volunteers that are going to help her. Lynn gives away 12 flyers to each of the volunteers. Then she takes the remaining flyers, we don't know how many, but some amount of remaining flyers, and she gives those to each of the 3 volunteers. In story 2, Lynn also has 90 flyers to hang up around the school. This time, she gives the same number of flyers to each of the volunteers, same number to each of the volunteers, and then she has 12 left for herself. So, since that's what's happening, let's take a look at question 3. You have story 1 and story 2, and the question is, which tape diagram goes with each story? I want you to pause this video and try to identify which story goes with which tape diagram. So we should have identified that story number 1 goes with diagram B. The reason is because she's giving each volunteer 12 flyers and some unknown amount of flyers. In picture B, we can see that there's 1, 2, 3 volunteers, and each of the volunteers got 12 flyers plus some more flyers. We don't know how much Y is, but that's the remaining amount, the mystery amount of flyers. 3 groups of Y plus 12. Story 2 goes with diagram A, and the reason is because Lynn gives the same number of flyers to each volunteer, volunteer 1, volunteer 2, and volunteer 3, but then she has 12 left that she hangs up by herself. These 12 are the Lynn flyers. I'm going to label them L because they're Lynn's flyers. You might need to pause this video to fill in your answer to question 3. I just explained it out loud, but I'm not going to type it out. You can always rewind this video to hear the explanation a second time. I want you to try question 4 on your own. In each diagram, what part of the story does the variable represent? Remember that story 1 goes with diagram B, and so the variable is Y, and story 2 goes with diagram A. Go ahead and give question 4 a try. We know that in story B, the variable, which is this X, in story 1, B, diagram B, we know the variable, which is this Y, is the remaining flyers that each volunteer got. Because Lynn gives 12 flyers to each volunteer, that's the 12th, and then she gives Y more flyers to each volunteer. We know that in diagram A, the X represents the flyers that each volunteer got. Because those X's that are split up into 3 equal groups, X, X, and X, are how many flyers were given to each volunteer. Now, our final step and the key of today's learning target is to write an equation corresponding to each story, then find the value of the variable. Let's take a look at the diagram. In diagram A, we know that we have a total of 90. 90 is going to be equal to 3 groups of X plus 12. And that would be the equation that we would write in the box for diagram A. I want you to pause this video and try to write your own equation for diagram B. In diagram B, we can see that once again, our equation is equal to 90. This time, 90 is equal to 3 groups of Y plus 12. Notice that I put Y plus 12 into parentheses. The reason is that I have 3 groups of Y and 12 together, as opposed to 3 groups of Y and adding on a 12. I have 12 3 times, and I have Y 3 times. We're not going to worry today about finding the value of the variable, but you should have those 2 equations written into your table. Before you move on with the video, you can pause me, make sure that you've caught up on slide 5. On slide 6, you'll see a summary of today's lesson. We saw an example of multiple types of tape diagrams today. Situations where we have 6 parentheses x plus 8 would be represented by one of these 2 situations here, and situations where we have 6x plus 8 would be represented by one of these 2 situations here. You can see at the bottom of the summary, it outlines which situation is which. This would be a great way for you to get a little extra practice if you want to pause the video and try to see whether 6 or 7 matches each equation. For today, you're all caught up with class. The only other thing you need to take care of is your homework for the week that's posted in Delta Math. As always, if you have questions, please make sure to send me an email.